Greetings and welcome to STO World. Tony here with you, episode 6. Yes, episode 6, and this episode is dealing with ship configurations and ship sets. And the reason I'm doing this video, first of all, I did an earlier video on ship configs, but it wasn't that simplified. It wasn't as clear and concise as it should have been. And not only that, but I've gained quite a bit more knowledge about this game. And it's funny, you learn something every day playing this game. And I learned that from two things. One, trial and error. And two, many of you leaving some great comments on how to actually build a ship. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to look at different sample configurations. Now, I know what works in this game, okay? And like, for example, escorts, cannons, and turrets. Yeah, I mean, stuff like that. But, you know what? I like to add my own preference to it. I'm not looking... See, as a player, I like to add my own Trek feel to it. I'm not necessarily trying to make my ship the highest DPS grossing ship in the game. And some people are into that, and I will show you some great ideas of how to get into that. But really, in reality, what it is that I like to add my own Trek novelty to it. So when I make my own configurations, they're not necessarily the best, at least for my preference, but they are still pretty good. And they all add my own novelty to it. And some people, you know, they're different. They like to add crazy amount of turrets and cannons, and maybe one torpedo launcher. I would like to maybe use two, you know, something like that along those lines. But I have to tell you that I'm going to go through each different type of ship. We're going to go look at science ships. We are going to look at escorts, and we are going to look at cruisers. And we'll look at the lockbox ships. So I'm not going to really go into each individual configuration right now. I'm not going to go through each individual ship. We'll do individual episodes on those ships. But I'm going to show you the value of the many sets in the game, what they are capable of doing, and how. And the sets I'm talking about are for ships. We'll do another thing for ground sets later on down the road. But, you know, we're looking at ships. So that is what we're looking for. Ooh, look at this. 19 minutes left on my reputation tier 2. So what I'll do is I will actually show everybody what that actually looks like. You'll get to see what it actually looks like. So to add an ability. So we'll do that. But anyhow, welcome to STO World. We're on Deep Space K7, I'm sorry. And obviously this was the space station where the Trouble with Tribbles took place, or Trials and Tribulations from DS9, as you might say. And obviously it's modernized since the last... It's been modernized, obviously, in the last, I don't know, 100 plus some years since Captain Kirk boarded it. But very nice stuff. And I'm, of course, wearing my 1,000-day veteran uniform. So let's talk about ship configurations and things you have going on. And one of the things I do is when you collect weapons, and we'll take a look at my bank here. I'm going to show you something. I come up with different sets and builds, obviously. So we're going to look at this. You know, and these are all Borg weapons I bought before the transfer, and of course from the lockboxes, some polarized disruptor. So I'll be doing a build somewhere along the lines of these. But I have different sets in here, different consoles, all that stuff. So we're going to take a look at... I'm going to look at each ship set in the game, go over each one first, okay? So we're going to go here to the space dock. And so let's take a look at... we'll take a look at the ISS Armstrong. USS Armstrong. I named this after Neil Armstrong, the astronaut who unfortunately had passed away earlier. So this is how you configure a ship, a typical ship. We're going to start with a typical ship configuration. I'm going to give you some do's and don'ts. Then we will go to escorts, cruisers, and science ships. So I'm just going to hit up the Armstrong since it's my first ship here. And we're going to take a look at some stuff here. And we'll even go into customization as well. So we'll go here. So typical ship configuration. Now, what you want to make sure that you do is you want to use the same weapon type throughout of each ship. So for example, this ship, most of my ships, I'm pretty cannon as far as the Federation goes. So most ships, I use nothing but phasers and quantum torpedoes. That's my staple. That's what I always use in this game. Although different ships have different configs, I do use some different weapon types, but phasers and quantum torpedoes are my staple. And for my cruiser, this is a typical cruiser build for me. And I mainly do PvE. I'm not doing PvP, so you guys know. So anyway, check this out. So you want to use the same weapon type. And the reason you want to use the same weapon type is because you then want to strengthen that weapon type by going to your tactical consoles and getting a tactical console that supports that particular weapon. In this case, phasers. So phaser, plus 26.2% phaser damage for these consoles here, obviously because I'm using phasers. This doesn't work very well if, like, say for example, you have like a disruptor here, Tetrion beam, Polaron, and a phaser. It just does not work, and you get more effectiveness out of this. In some ships, and you'll see when I go through an Escort, I'll use a quantum, a console that strengthens my quantum torpedoes as well. So that is the #1 rule of thumb. That's the biggest mistake some people will make when they're new to the game, is different weapon types on each ship. You want to keep the same weapon type, period. And because that is what will, in the end, will help you out. Now, obviously these ships are, they're different. Each build is different. I have a different build for each one. But, those are some do's and don'ts. And one of the things that I do, and I'm a tactical officer, so we'll look at my skill tree, for example. The way I have myself set up is this. And this is more than for tax. Obviously, engineer science might be a little bit different. But obviously, I have all the tactical skills maxed, with the exception of stealth and threat control, because I see absolutely no use for those. Some people like stealth. I know some guys that have it maxed. Not a big fan of it. Threat control, a lot of people like to use that as well. I don't. But I'm really skilled in 3 main things. Weapons first, structural integrity, shields, warp core. And that's it. And anything to do with hull repair. So that, if you look at my skills, this is what I do. It's very simple. And I do all the tactical things because I want to be able to obviously train in all those abilities, but 2, I want to do as much damage as possible. So, but I like to hang out in a firefight. So I got to hull repair, warp core potential, shield performance, thrusters, integrity, drive recoil, shield emitter, shield systems. That is what I max in. Some people's skills are different, but this is what I like to actually do. Now, everybody's skill set can be different, and there's no right or wrong way. I'm just letting you know where I'm coming from. So really, when I skill up, I get to really skill up and use, like, make these weapons as effective as they possibly can be. So that is a basic thing you never want to do on a ship. You want to make sure you never use different weapon types. You want to use the same weapon type throughout. Granted, I have a tri-cobalt, but they're so effective, I don't need anything helping them. But especially with your beam weapons and cannons, that's what you want to have these consoles help make those effective, because you fire those the most often. Okay, so just wanted to kind of give you one big do not do on this. So let's go through the sets, and I'm going to go through different types of sets and consoles. Now, the first set I'll go to, since I'm sitting here, is a Mako Mark 12, the Mako set. Now, you have to go through the rep system to get this now, but I ended up getting these and the Omegas for pretty much all my ships, the Mark 12s, and I use a variety of different sets. But this Mako set is awesome, and first of all, you get the enhanced warp drive with it. Obviously, it's great for STFs because you get the plasma resistance with the shields and stuff like that as you're looking. And, helps the power settings too. Then you also have the engines, which again, you get the asynchronous warp drive, where the max speed can be helped with your drive recoil. And then you have the deflector, which has all this stuff. Now we go through the set bonuses. Let's check this out. Okay, set bonuses. So, 17, adds, obviously, this is the deflector capabilities, but these are the set bonuses that you get, okay? You get a magnetic plasma relay, which actually helps your power recharge speed, and also helps your power insulators on your ship, which is great. Then you have the heavy graviton beams, which, if you look at this, it repels your target, it does damage to your target, it also takes off impulse auxiliary and weapons systems offline for 5 seconds. And I think it's actually just an outstanding weapon to have coming out of your deflector. It reminds me of that episode in All Good Things where... Not All Good Things. What is the episode? God, I'm just so rusty now on Next Generation episodes now. The episode basically with Commander Riker and Commander Shelby, they basically use a deflector pulse to fire at the Borg cube, which burned out their deflector. Well, that's what I'm talking about, and why I am gonna. People are gonna be actually. People are gonna be mad at me for not knowing that episode name. I'm mad at myself. So, but anyhow, that's what the Mako set will do. Let's go back over here. We'll look at some other sets here in the game, and kind of go down here. Go to an Omega set. Okay. Now, for pure space combat, I like the Omega set the best. And you get the Tetryon glider, which -1 shield drain to all energy weapons attacks. You get the gravitic anchor, which I think is so beyond awesome. It lowers the defense, kinetic damage resistance, and it kind of freezes the target a little bit when you use it. It's great against the Borg cube. It really is. So, and then obviously your shield. You got the energy wake, and which the energy wake would apply. You know, gives you some flight speed and also gives you helps your turn rate for 5 seconds. And obviously reducing plasma damage to your shields because you're fighting the Borg. Then you have your Omega engines, which do, you know, help you out with your turn rate. And then you have the deflector, obviously, doing what it does best. So that is the Omega set. We'll go to the Borg set, and this is obviously a big staple of mine. I bought a whole bunch of these before the conversion, and I actually used them all in the Vesta ships and a few other things, but check this out. So, when you look at this, this is a signed ship. So when you look at this, you see the deflector, obviously, which is part of the original Borg set in the game, which I still think is one of the best. You got the sub-trans warp engines, which are freaking awesome. You have the regenerative shield array, obviously, as well, which has some cool stuff to it. Now, I want to show you some really cool attributes. So we're going to watch some of these sets in action, maybe somewhere down the line. And, you know, look at the set bonuses. Now, this is a cool Borg tractor beam. This set's really good. And as cheap as it is in the game, or it was, I mean, this was a steal with EDC. So anyway, you got the autonomous regeneration sequencer, which helps your health regeneration and hull repair when it applies. Plus, you know, when you receive damage, 2% chance of applying the autonomous regeneration sequencer when you receive damage from somebody. But it does help a lot with repairing your hull. You get so it's like a heal. Multi-regenerative shield array, again, same thing. When your shields fall, any shield falls below 20%, it kicks in. Has a 10% chance of kicking in, and man, it's outstanding how it works. It really does do a great job. And the assimilated tractor beam, if you get the new cutting beam, now I have not tried it, but this tractor beam not only sucks power from a ship, but you also hold it in place, and it will do kinetic damage to a ship if you have within 4 seconds of using the cutting beam. Whenever I do actually get that, that actual set, this is awesome, and these Borg sets are great. I've had them now since the STFs came out almost 2 years ago, and good stuff. And then of course you have this part of this set, which I have not used this yet, the Omega Weapon Amplifier Reactive Deflection set. This is a set that you can get through Reputation, so nobody really has it yet. But these assimilated modules are great. I actually put these in every ship I have, simply because of the weapon power setting, you know, helping to hull repair, etc., etc. Even if they don't have a Borg set. So these are great. But this set, this is the second Borg set. You can get an Omega Plasma Torpedo Launcher, a Mark 12, which, you know, again, this set will probably go on my Steam Runner, believe it or not. This is probably what I'll use it on. Omega Weapon Amplifier, you know, you can get that eventually. That's part of the, that's a weapon, that's an ability you will be able to get. And we'll add weapon power and weapon power resistance. This is a lot of really cool stuff if you look at it. And then reactive deflection. When hit to drastically reduce all incoming damage for 1 second. So I'm looking forward to getting that part 2 of the Borg set. Okay. Let us look at another really cool set in the game. Actually, we'll look at another one. One of the oldest sets in the game. In fact, it was one of the first that ever came out in the game, and that is the Aegis set. And You know what? A lot of people don't use this. They've abandoned it. You know, there was a time when the Aegis set, it was like this in a Borg set, and that was it. And to be honest with you, I honestly, this set to me was my favorite one for a very long time. And you know what? It still has a use in the game. People disregard it because it's old and it's not as used as often. But I can tell you that it's still useful, and you could still craft it. It's the only craftable set in the game. So if you look. The one thing I love about the Aegis, and there are some great attributes to this, and I still use it. I still use it on a few ships, actually. I've sold some of them because at one point I crafted a ridiculous amount of Aegis sets before even free-to-play went into effect. But I still use the Aegis set. I honestly still use it. It's a great set. It's great for defense and support, especially. So let's take a look at this. So you have your Aegis shields, and you see the shield capacity, obviously, here. Normally, and you get the shield regeneration a little bit there. Do your impulse stats on this, and then you have the deflector. Now, they look like they have nothing special, but there's one passive thing I love about the Aegis set. There's one thing I love about it. First of all, you get the Thoron distortion field, which many people don't realize that you get a +5 bonus defense because it deceives sensors into targeting Duranium shadows. So what this does is that it combines with the Aegis Impulse Engine bonus for that defense to grant a total of 10% to your defense. So you're adding 10% defense to your ship right away with this Thoron distortion field, which is one reason I like it. And the other reason I love this set, okay? Now, your Omega set is great against plasma weapons, for example. The Borg set really doesn't have any specific resistance to anything. And then if you go to, like, you know, just regular covariant shields like Mark 12s, you know, some might be resistant to phasers, some are resistant to plasma. But the Aegis set has one thing that no other set has, and that's very simply the Aegis set has the reactive shielding. The reactive shielding, what this is when it activates, it will actually activates resistance to whatever's firing at you. So for example, if somebody's firing at you with phasers, it will kick in and automatically build up a resistance to phasers. If someone's shooting plasma, it will automatically power up its resistance against plasma. If someone is firing disruptors or Polaron, whatever anybody is firing at you, these shields react and give you a defense bonus against that specific energy type. Now, for example, the reactive shields, if you look at it, they stack up to 5 times per energy type and can resist against several different energy types. So if you're fighting someone in PvP, you could actually, if someone's using Polarons, 1 anti-protons, this will actually provide resistance for you. Now, it doesn't have any, now this set has no special abilities like a gravitic anchor or a graviton pulse or anything like that, but this reactive shielding is definitely a great bonus to have. And the reason why, on my large group and fleet of ships that I have, I still use the Aegis on a few of them. Case in point, my cruiser, this Galaxy class cruiser, which is actually more of a support ship for STFs, at least in my book. So we're going to so this is a great set, don't get me wrong. So we're going to go down to let's see here. What ship do I have it on? Brr. Okay. So we're going to go down to the USS Stingray. Yeah, this is it. Okay. So I have the Breen set. Another set that many people don't use. I use it on my Galler simply because my Galler is what I call the Breen killer. Meaning that I do my Deferi dailies mostly with this ship. Okay. Now, this set, the shields resistant to Polaron damage. You have, it's a very simple set. You can get it for doing the Breen missions. You have, you know, it's a very simple impulse engines. Thrusters 25% speed when engines are disabled. Pretty cool. Then you have the polarized parabolic deflector. You know, and these are the deflector stats you're looking at. Now let's look at the set bonuses themselves, which I think are cool. You do have you have the superconducting phase channels, which actually, if you use transphasic torpedoes or mines, it raises the damage. on them, which is why I use transphasic torpedoes on this ship. It's actually the only ship I use transphasics on. Electroplasma system, again, helps with power, you know, like power transfer, stuff like that. You have the Breen energy dissipator, which is really cool. Basically, it's the same thing that if you're fighting a Breen cruiser, when it starts doing like a power siphon on you, that's what this does. And you get that cool ability to it. You know, this set's really nothing special or spectacular, like, say, for example, you know, the Omega sets, which are my favorite in the Borg. But it does have its uses. If you're fighting the Breen, it makes sense, and this is why I use it. Alright, now moving on. We are going to go to one more set here. That's the Jem'Hadar set. That's right, the USS Invincible checking on here, my attack bug ship. I've had it a year now since they did the Christmas special. I traded for it December of 2011. And I will tell you what, I like this set quite a bit. It's really cool. There's a lot of cool stuff about it. So we'll take a look at it. You have your Jem'Hadar shields. And these shields are actually cool because, number one, you get a kinetic damage resistant rating. It helps your kinetic damage resistance. Also, plus 50 crew death disable resistance. So your crew doesn't die quite as easily. Which actually helps with your ship repair. Impulse engines, again, you get additional weapon power from this, which is great. And obviously you see the stats here. You have the deflector, which is, you see there, even if I went stealth, if I had a lot of stealth, it would help my stealth detect. It helps with my stealth detection for cloaked ships. Anyway, check this out though, because this set is really cool. In fact, between all the free sets in the game, free meaning you can get them in a mission, or, well, maybe crafting is not free anymore, but you know, if I count the Aegis, this one's my favorite. And you look at why. The Dominion synergy, you get a Polaron damage increase, Starship power insulator increase, anti-proton sweep, which actually lowers shields, and it will actually get up to 5 enemies at once when you are within a certain distance. You got to be within 6 kilometers. Victory is life, 1% chance to strip 1 buff while using Polaron weaponry. And actually, there are some of these things that only apply to Jem'Hadar and Cardassian Galler. But obviously, with the Jem'Hadar ship, you know, some people will use other sets that may work better with the Jem'Hadar ship itself. But you know what? I'm sorry. I am using the set on the Jem'Hadar ship simply because it adds more of a Trek feel to it for me. And that's why I do it. Now, a couple more sets we're going to go into. I do not have the Riemann set. So, because I've not gotten that far in reputation, and I never really did the vault missions too often. I'm not a big small craft shuttle guy. As you can see, I don't have a lot of small craft down here. But we'll look at some other sets here. So we're going to look at the Temporal Warfare set, which is on the Retribution. Now, I flip-flop these modules onto the Wells science ship, the Einstein, every once in a while. But we'll look at the Temporal Warfare set. If you're thinking about getting this from a low-buy store, do yourself a favor and do it, because it's awesome. You know, you get this Chronoton dual beam array, which is really an anti-proton beam array, and you see what it does as far, and it actually does some pretty good damage as well. Plus 40% critical severity, which is insane. Then you have this temporal disruption device, which is like completely lethal. And if you watch the ship about the Wells time, the video about the Wells time ship, you'll see what I'm talking about. And then you have the tachyokinetic converter as well. So it helps your critical severity, graviton generators, critical chance, etc. And also helps your turn rate. So go here. So Chronoton synchronicity, you have 27 Chronoton projectile weapon damage, hence why I use a Chronoton torpedo launcher. And then your temporal inversion field. Now this thing is insane. Okay, this is why this Retribution, the Mobius and the Wells are such great support ships, because, you know, within 5 kilometers, you lower turn rate, power recharge speed, and your own flight speed and turn rate goes up, as does your power recharge speed. Very, very cool device. And this temporal torpedo here is a pretty lethal thing. It's a destructible projectile. Kind of think of a what would you call it? Think of a tricobalt. Think of like a tricobalt, but different. So we'll look at that, and then obviously you have this set you get from having both the Mobius and the Wells. You got the Mannheim device, which makes 2 duplicates. Pretty cool. Love this thing. And it triples your firepower. But what's kind of cool is if a counterpart gets hit, it does affect you as well. Then you have the Tippler cylinder, which makes you go backwards in time, repairs and heals a bunch of stuff. And then the set together to get the fragment time ability, which fragments time. So pretty good stuff, actually, when you look at it. So that's a temporal warfare set. Another set that people haven't really looked at, and we'll look at the USS NASDAQ. Yeah, it's a fun, clever thing for the USS NASDAQ. I named the Ferengi ship that. I had to. It just makes sense. Anyway, I have the Ferengi set. A lot of people don't have this. A lot of people never bothered to get it. I got it for the novelty purposes, but also it does have its uses. So, like for example, rapid fire missile launcher. You have a tachyon mine launcher, which these things are actually really cool because they really lower the resistance, shield resistance of the targets. They don't do any damage, but they lower shield resistance for you to do damage. And then you have the Rule 62 multi-purpose combat module, which enhances your mine and torpedo damage. Your power transfer rate goes up to 45.8%, more than what it normally would be. And then starship flow capacitors, they go up as well. And we'll take a look at this because the Ferengi set is pretty kind of cool, actually. So, Sector Space Tycoon. So if you go to buy something from Sector Space, which nobody really ever does, but if you do, 20% off at any vendor. You get a lifetime of experience plus 10% commendation XP bonus. And in Friends in High Places, you summon a freighter, a Ferengi privateer that you can actually do a unique DOF mission, do unique DOF missions with, which is pretty cool. And the Ferengi Decor is a pretty slick ship anyway in itself. So those are the sets, man. I mean, these are the sets, the main sets in this game. I mean, obviously the Klingons have the Honor Guard set. I don't play Clinks, unfortunately, like I should, but, you know, again, that is what you have. So, what are we going to do as far as configurations? And many people ask yourself, okay, configurations, Tony, what do you do? What's going on? And how do I configure this, that, and the other thing? So, we're going to start with escorts. Now, you can configure any of these ships so many different ways that, you know, there's really no right or wrong way. It's all about your personal preference and what you like to have fun with. And that's what it matters in the end, having fun in the game. And when I look at this, I think to myself, okay, what kind of configuration am I going to do? So I'm going to go through each different type of config that I have. Now, we'll start with, let's go through an escort. Let's just look at the, like, I don't know, we'll look at the Armitage, for example, right? Okay, now, Armitage can be configured in quite a few different ways, simply because it's a very different ship, and it's a great support ship. Now, my Armitage is meant in a support role. Now, you can configure this as a typical escort. A lot of people that love escorts, what they will do is have one torpedo launcher. If you're looking to do like the max amount of DPS, as far as consoles and all that other stuff go, or like weapons, okay? What you would typically do, if you really just want to annihilate everything in front of you, you would put 3 Mark 12, you put like turrets in the back. So I would have, like, say, because I change the configuration on this quite often sometimes. I'll put 3 turrets, 3 phaser turrets in the back, and then I'll have cannons, 3 sets of cannons, and a torpedo launcher up front. And you will literally annihilate everything in front of you with the right bridge officer abilities. Okay, you just will. It's unquestioned, and it's great because obviously, you know, with different ships, you can mix and match stuff. But I use this in a support role, so I'm not really looking to do the max amount of DPS, but I almost use it like you would a cruiser in a sense. I kind of tank the ship a little bit, And what I do is this, okay? I have quad cannons in the front. Yeah, they're pretty effective. You get them by claiming and reclaiming the Sao Paulo thing if you bought it, if you bought it in the C store, Z store, whatever you want to call it. I got this phaser beam bank, you know, photon torpedoes, because I enhanced my photon torpedoes due to this console. And you want to look at what kind of console your ship has and what kind of set you're running. And you'll see what I mean. So, I have a beam array, so because what I like to do is be able to hit targets effectively from all angles, not just the front. You know, if you're looking to do just front, I mean, really, honestly, you know, you're going to use turrets in the back, 3 turrets, 3 cannons, torp launcher. Very simple. Very simple setup and design. Okay, I use a Borg set, obviously, as we went through all the different sets. Now, all of my ships, every ship that I use in this game, now mark my words, every one of them is one of these. Because this console is very versatile when it comes to kinetic, like, for example, any type of damage resistance. And I try to have an ablative hull armor or a tetraburnium armor, depending on what's going on. This is obviously not the fleet version, because our starbase hasn't gotten that far yet. But you kind of see where I'm going with this. You know, 3 tactical consoles. Now, on every escort, okay, what you want to do is, say if you're using phasers like I'm using on here, 3 consoles of whatever beam weapon or cannon you are using. So, in this case, phaser relays. And then 1 console to enhance whatever torpedoes or projectiles you have on that. So, for this one, photon detonation assembly for the photon torpedoes. Now, this ship in particular can be lethal because of its BOF abilities that I use on this ship. And we'll look at those here in a second. And I use some very rare advanced peregrine fighters in my hangar. Pretty good stuff. They do a pretty good amount of DPS. And again, all my ships use this universal assimilated module because it's that freaking awesome. And all of them use a field generator to help my maximum shield capacity. So and these 3 consoles are universal on every ship I use in the game. So remember that when we're looking at subsequent ships. Now, we're going to look at I didn't go to the we'll look at the stations. So, typical BOF setup for this, for example. And named it the Arion. And obviously, ironically, that's the author of our theme music here in STO World. So, stations, yeah, you know, kind of show you what I do. I'll show you what I do and why. Okay, first of all, this is actually going to change. And the reason it's going to change is this, okay? I rapid fire, obviously, and scatter volley. You always want to have those on an escort. Use them one right after the other. Torp spread 3, which if you use Torp spread 3 and the console, you see volleys of torpedoes go on after you. I am going to add in attack pattern beta 1 or 2. Probably attack pattern beta 1. Attack pattern beta lowers damage resistance. And when you use that coupled with high DPS like cannons and rapid fire and stuff like that, it will just literally drain an enemy dry. It really will. It will just like completely, you will annihilate stuff in your path. And you'll see, and I'll go into more of that, more detail on that when we go and say look at my Mobius. Okay. I use TAC Team 1 a lot because what it does, it provides a tactical advantage against, like, say if I'm doing a cure and something's attacking me, it provides resistance to whatever shield it's attacking. And it also enhances your damage. So, since I'm using beam arrays, I'm using Fire at Will 1. If I wasn't using beam arrays, it would be something different. I would probably have, like, a high-yield torpedo here, and then I'd probably have attack pattern beta 1 at the very least right there. So, some pretty good stuff. Then, you know, I'm using, obviously, beam fire at will because I'm using beams. You know, the engineering setup, typical. I like to use emergency power of the shields, polarity, and engineering team 2. And I usually use science team 1 and hazard emitters 2. So, very typical. And these two are typical for escorts, these two abilities here, and cruisers alike. And any ship I have, I like to have these two abilities to regenerate my hull and my shields. So, that's just a personal preference. People have different layouts. Some people like to use different buffs to drain power and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. So that's typical Escort configuration. And if you go and look, like for example, and we'll look down. Let's look at the Mobius, for example. You know, I'm using cannons, turrets. Obviously, I have the set on there. But if I didn't have this set, I would be using 3 anti-proton turrets in the back. But this this disruption device actually adds a nice surprise when you turn around to whatever enemies are behind you. And if you use Torp Spread 3, it will make up the 3 of these torpedoes, which is pretty cool. But that's how it goes. Now, here are some other things. You know, so that's a typical Escort setup here. And we'll go down other Escort setups. Let's look here. Yeah, you see how I get a lot of my Escorts are set up like this. A couple cannons, beam arrays, torp launcher. I use rare beam arrays sometimes. No, I debate. But I do use beam arrays. Now, every ship I also use devices. I always use a weapons battery and a deuterium surplus. Makes it easier, you know. This is a multi-vector assault ship. And so is this one as well, the Victory. And as you see, I'm using Omega set. Cannon, beam array, and torpedo. Now, another great Escort build that I love using is this one. We'll look at my Steam Runner, the USS Patton, George S. Patton. And typically, it always deletes one thing. But the Patton, okay? Now, this is awesome, okay? I'm actually sporting plasma weapons on this. 2 plasma cannons, a plasma beam array, plasma torps here. Turrets, check this out. Look at these turrets. 2 plasma turrets. This thing does some pretty lethal damage. And I tested this out in PvP and we were just annihilating people with this. Resonance Cascade Modulator, which is for the shields. Obviously, my ambi plasma... Oh, sorry, my plasma infusers and my ambi plasma envelope, which helps my plasma torpedoes. I threw on like a theta radiation vent. You see the hull platings and then the board console. Pretty cool stuff if you're looking at different things. And then you look at like the Jem'Hadar. Now, the Jem'Hadar and my Defiant are different. So I use mines on these ships, actually. Mines actually can be pretty effective if used correctly. So, for example, we will go down to the Invincible Jem'Hadar ship, okay? And I use quantum mines. On my Defiant, I use plasma mines, which work out freaking awesome. But I use quantum mines with this. Just added a different touch to the actual ship. Now, one thing I regret doing, I am gonna put turrets on this eventually, but I switch from turrets to beams depending on what I'm fighting and where. But I switch it up. I have a preference. The turrets do a little more frontal damage DPS wise than these beam arrays, but I do like the beam arrays still. But what I did is I have 3 Polaron consoles, a quantum chamber for the torpedoes because I'm using quantums, Polaron cannons, beam array, and then I have this isometric charge, which works really well, especially on this ship and the Galler. And if you look at the Invincible's buff stations, ooh, look at this! I get the collector reward. Let's take a break here. What am I gonna do? So it's a max and critical chance. I am going to do shield systems. Awesome. I love the rep system. It freaking rules! Alright. Now that I've said that, let's get back into the action of ships. So, we're going to go into the stations here. Boy, I hate it when it deletes. It always deletes my Borg Engineer's thing in here. I hate when the screen gets all messed up. You know, it drives me nuts sometimes when you do this. Okay. Anyhow, this is how I have this ship set up, okay? I have Rapid Fire 2 and obviously Scatter Volley. Very, very effective. Your attack team, Torp Spread 3, you see like 1,000 quantum torpedoes going on screen. Attack Pattern Beta 3, so it lays out a ridiculous amount of mines. High Yield 2, Overload 2, works really well with the front beam arrays especially. Typical Escort build. I always have Polarity, Engineering team, and then obviously since I have the extra slot here for the Engineer, emergency power the shields 1. And typically this is my homemade Vorta. So, but these are typical Escort builds that you can use. Now remember, use the same weapon type, and remember to use consoles to enhance that. Now, we're done with the Escorts. Let's talk about consoles, like special consoles, really quick before we get into cruisers. We're going to talk about special consoles, and we're going to talk about special sets. Okay, the Odyssey, for example, has a special set when you buy the 3-pack. I'll show you why this is awesome. Okay, so go to the Arlington, which is what I call my flagship. If you get all 3 of these in the pack, you get the Aquarius Escort console, you get the Chevron separation console, which helps the saucer separation, and then you get the work bees. And I use these on all my Oddies. But the enhanced engineering systems are great for hull plating, armor reinforcements, electroplasma system, etc. Plus a 25% recharge time reduction to the Odyssey console set, so all the consoles recharge faster. And then you have the Vesta science set, which, we'll go to the Calypso here, since it's close by. And he's had a ton of abilities. This is actually really cool. Adds a lot of abilities to your ship. This is the Fermion Field console. This will add on the... Oh, what does it do? Quantum Field Focus Controller. And a multidimensional wave analysis module. So you go here. So, Quantum Focus Shield Bubble. As a bonus, you get the Chronoton Integrated Slipstream Drive. And then you get the Sympathetic Fermion See, you just get all sorts of... You get so many cool abilities with this ship. It's unbelievable. And, you know, we'll demonstrate those abilities, but you get... Oh my god, you get some really cool abilities for science. It's great. Because you get the you get a shield enhancement. You can get a phaser beam that just shoots straight for like 12 seconds. And then you get the... yeah, it's just... It's awesome. We're going to do an episode on Vestas, though, so I won't get too much into that. And it also has a hangar, runabouts. Each Vestas gets something different. Other consoles. Graviton Pulse Generator. This thing is beyond awesome. And what it does is it just lowers the speed of a ship and turn rate. And it could take impulse engines offline. You go to Theta Radiation. It's like using warp plasma, but a little bit more effective. Other special consoles. What else is out there? I use this on the Edison, on this science ship. Photonic displacement. It makes your ship stealth, and it fires at and the other ship will fire at a shadow, which I think is kind of slick. Let's go through here. We have... What other special consoles am I using right now on ships? The isometric console we just went over. This you get from the C-Store. Universal Point Defense console system right there. It's got a phaser point defense system. There's other stuff here too. Like this. I don't use this, but this is like an ionized gas sensor. You get that from buying the... Oh, what is it? The heavy cruiser from the Z-Store. But those are some examples of some consoles and some other sets that exist out there. So, but reality is that's how you configure what we configured Escorts. I gave you some typical ideas on that. Let's talk about cruisers. Okay. Oh, this console too. Forgot about this. I like this for the science ship. The enhanced plasma manifold, which actually helps your shields for 20 seconds. I do use this, and it also repairs shields as well. All right, cruisers. All right, so we'll go to cruisers. All right, and I use cruisers particularly as a tanking ship that stays in a firefight. Cruisers and side ships are both support ships to escorts, really. Because what they do is a cruiser can tank and stay in a fight, while a science ship does nothing but just debuff everybody. Okay, so you have the Arlington here. Let's take a look at the Arlington, or typical cruiser build. Let's look at. Well, I don't know what's a good cruiser to look at. Now we can look at the Excelsior here. Now we look at the Excelsior. You know, or the Star Cruiser. In fact, let's look at the, where's it at? Where's the Star Cruiser at? Okay, here we go. Let's just use this for example, right? Typical cruiser build. You know, this cruiser's nothing special. I just use it to goof around in. But I use 4 phaser beams, obviously. I always use a tri-cobalt because it does some damage. Launchers. Some people like to use, like, 6 beam arrays. Some people use 6. Some people use 7 beam arrays and 1 launcher. That actually can work really well if you're using, like, for example, beam fire at will. It can be pretty effective. But you're looking at a couple other cool consoles in here. I have this console here, antimatter spread, which disables targets and confuses them, and they attack each other. And then this is cool. I use this on 2 ships. It helps. It's a transwarp computer. Helps your warp core efficiency and also lowers your cooldown rate for transwarp by 50%. Cool stuff. But you know, typical cruiser build. I build it the tank, and obviously you see the assimilated module on here. I see the 3 hull platings, and I sometimes, if I can fit it, a plasma distribution manifold. Now, if you look at the Avalon here, I use this as a support ship. So, if you look at the stations, this is what I use totally. Oh my god, and it completely just completely annihilated my wonderful buff configuration. That actually kind of makes me mad. Oh well. Anyway, I have to find it wherever it's at. Well, anyway, there's a specific bridge officer configuration I use on this ship in particular. And the reason I do is because what I do is I have, like, you know, your typical stuff here: plasma, power to shields, structural integrity field, power to weapons. But then what I'll do is I'll use, like for example, here I would have, like, extend shields, for example. And then 2 other really cool abilities here to help heal my ship. The extend shields helps my fellow people in combat, for example, okay? And then since I have the extra engineering, so I do put, like, power to engine. So this is how I like to set a cruiser up. I like to have a typical high yield 2 and a beam array overload to do a little bit of extra damage. You know, depending on the ship, like if it's the Galaxy X, I might set it up differently. Maybe add some cannons, maybe not, depending on my mood. But that's how you really set up a ship like that. Simply because of the fact that, and I like to use, the cruisers can be really effective. They are really effective. But, again, typical build. You know, the Excelsior's typical build that I have here, as you're looking at. Hull platings. Nothing crazy, nothing special. Pretty decent stuff. All my cruisers are mainly for a support role. They're not meant to really just try and annihilate everything in their path. Some people can configure them to do that. I just choose not to. Okay. Then you go to, you know, like the Stingray. And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. When you go to your ships, if you have a set on a ship that caters specifically to a weapon type, use that weapon type. For example, Jem'Hadar set, I'm using Polaron weapons because it makes them more effective. Breen set makes transphasic torpedoes more effective. The temporal warfare set makes chronotons more effective, etc., etc. You see what I'm saying? Okay. All right. Anyhow. And I'm yawning because everything's kind of crazy. And I've been talking for nonstop for almost an hour, it seems like. But anyhow, we're going to go and, after I stretch out here, so we're going to go look at the Excalibur. Not the Excalibur, look at some science ships. Now, I will preface this by saying science ships are great debuffers. That is their purpose in this game. Debuffing targets. Crippling targets. They are good with all of that. I'm sorry, I'm just doing a DOF mission here really quick. There we go. They are particularly great at debuffing, okay? And I will tell you why. Let's just use the Atlantis. Use the Fleet Reconnaissance Vessel, for example, right? Now, when you look at this, science abilities are so cool. Tractor beams are so effective, number one. Holding targets in place. You can use, like, gravity wells. You got your Tychon's Rift. You use a polarized hull, which can, like, you know, basically make you immune to tractor beams as well as being held in place. like you get like photonic officer, and we'll just look at weird configurations here. All these abilities in science, they completely debuff everything. They debuff your targets, really, is what you're looking at. And typical science build for me, you know, I don't have one. But if we go by what we're looking at, honestly, I just use standard phasers on them. They're standard Borg phasers. I got here in quantums. I use nothing different. 2 torp launchers, 4 beam arrays. Very simple, very effective. Some special abilities console is actually one of these field generators. I need to actually take one of these out of here for something else and swap it with a different console. But typical, I like to strengthen up the hull plating. You know, this one's obviously has an extra attack console, so I do that. But that's typical science build, really. I mean, science ships are actually some of the easiest to build, only because you're using so many different special abilities. You got power siphon. I mean, you got all sorts of crazy stuff you can use in this game. Like, you know, for example, we'll go to my buffs, right? And you look at some of the different cool science abilities. Like feedback pulse is freaking awesome. You know, tractor beam 3 is awesome. Hazard emitters, Tychon's Rift, jam sensors is pretty cool. Where they can't see you. You have energy siphon. You know, you just keep going down the list here. Scramble sensors is a nice one. Transfer shield strength is a huge one for me. Mask energy signature is kind of cool. Transfer shield strength is cool. Science Team 3 that helps your shields is cool. So science ships provide a different aspect to the game. Now, obviously, cruisers are best with engineers, and science is best with science actual tunes themselves, but, you know, any officer can use any ship effectively if you configure it right. And that is the big thing. Auxiliary to structural, you know, all that stuff. You know, and some cool engineering abilities. I mean, you got the aceton beam, which I use on one ship. Mostly, yeah, auxiliary to structural 3, emergency power to shields, whatnot. So anyway, just wanted to kind of go into typical configurations of ships. Now, there are no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong in this. There really isn't. And, you know, what I'm going to do, actually, I want to use the Mobius. I'm going to show you guys how cool the Mobius is. Because one of the next episodes is going to be strictly on this ship. But we're going to demonstrate it. I have to. I'm sorry. We're going to go head out here and demonstrate this Mobius really quick. Because it is that cool. So, where shall we go? Well, as usual, there's always the bug where it keeps I got secret shuttle codes. So a new mission has been added to my log. So we'll figure out what that is. It's from the rep system, apparently. Ooh, wait a minute. Since we're here, what cool projects can I work on? 0-point energy conduit. I wonder what this thing is. Ooh, there's another Romulan set I didn't even know about. Well, I guess this is my next project. Ha! And then we're gonna do... which one gains the most points? Well, wait a minute. I'm going through the rep system. I'm sorry. I have to stop through this a little bit. Wow, cool. Okay, well, we're going to do this one here. I get the most, whatever. So I have another ability. I am really, okay, I'm sorry. I love the rep system. Guys, devs, you did awesome with this. Anyway, sorry. Had to take a pause there. And I honestly, and this is what I hate. I end up getting all these bridge officer slots before. And looking here. So, anyhow, I hate when everything gets messed up like this. It's like grr, you know. So, I believe I had this as an engineer. And my science Where was my science? Oh, okay. Typical setup. Now I want to go through this. You're going to laugh. And we're going to end the show off with this, because I really want to show you guys the Mobius. And I'm going to do a small mission out here. Let's say in the Ida Iridani. So let's find a small combat mission. We'll do this one. Head for the Zabal system for the freighter. But I'm going to show this to you because this is a preview. I'm going to go through my configuration in depth of what I'm using. But I'm going to show you this configuration, everybody, and you can check it out. And you can... There we go, the little Shamar freighter. That's what we're going to do. But check this out, everybody. We're going to go take this on. We're going to play some music while I'm fighting these things. And you can check out this ship as a little treat to end off this show. And, of course, I'll be back a little bit right after this. And check it out. ladies and gentlemen, that is the ISS Retribution, and that ship is lethal. It just is lethal. What I did with this, and I basically did that little short mission just to show you the different abilities that this thing has, and my God, it's just this was like one of my dream ships, and love playing it. So anyway, I hope it helps you out. I hope this helps you out. I hope it was effective. I hope that anybody that's watching this got something out of it. This is especially good for new players, but you know what? Everybody that is healthy, I want to thank everybody for giving me different builds and ideas. because all of you, honestly, everybody teaches everybody the game, and I think it's great. So with that, I look forward to doing yet another episode with everybody out there. And again, next week's episode, probably on this ship particularly, or it may be on, say, I don't know, the Decor. I'm actually thinking about doing the Decor next week. I don't know. Who knows? I'll do it on some really cool ship, probably another lockbox ship. And I have to tell you, I had a lot of fun, and I am winded because I am talking way too much. And, well, that's about it. So if anybody has any questions, again, join my channel on Star Trek Online. It's called STO World. Join my channel. And you can mail me, T. Webster 1977. Send me an in-game mail, and I will get you on the channel. If you want an invite, we can talk, do whatever. And, of course, spread the word, man. Any new players, send them to this site. I like to help out people in the game and give you guys a perspective. So with that, everybody take care. Have a good one. And it was great talking to you. See you out in the galaxy.